now to talk about our module of the week. Let's turn it over to Martin Anderson-Klutz, a senior solutions engineer at Acquia and a maintainer of a number of Drupal modules of his own. Martin, what do you have for us this week?
Thanks, Nick. Have you ever wanted to add a layer of automation to Drupal's Migrate API to simplify the process of migrating content and site architecture from Drupal 7 to Drupal 9? There's a module for that. It's called Acquia Migrate Accelerate, and it was created in July of 2020 by Aaron Winborn Award winner WebChick, aka Angie Byron. It has a 1.8.0 release available, which works with Drupal 9, and it is actively maintained. In fact, that latest release, its first as an open source project, was in the past week. It officially has 3 issues open, none of which are bugs, and all of them are labeled as fixed, and it also has test coverage. Now, because it's so new, it officially has no sites that are reported as using it. And the most current release is by Wim Leers, a longtime Drupal contributor and core subsystem maintainer. The goal of Migrate Accelerate is to make Drupal core's Migrate API something that can be used by less technical users to migrate a Drupal 7 site to a modern version of Drupal. It relies on an Acquia CLI command to analyze your Drupal 7 site so it can generate a composer.json file using an existing matrix of hundreds of mappings from legacy modules to modern Drupal equivalents, including patches. That composer file then becomes the basis for your migrated site, into which it will begin to migrate your content architecture. Now, it provides an interactive dashboard that lists out the various kinds of content found on the origin site with an ability to control the order in which the migrations will be performed. At any point, it's possible to see a live preview of the content that's been migrated, all within the same UI. There's also a drush command to trigger the same process, which actually runs more efficiently, but also allows for the live preview. Now, if you want to get an estimate on how much of your Drupal 7 site can be migrated automatically, there is also a flight path report you can generate using a drush command, which is an HTML file that will sort of visually summarize how much of your Drupal 7 site can be migrated automatically. Migrate Accelerate used to be available only to Acquia customers and partners, but with this new release, anyone in the community can use it to help them migrate their Drupal 7 site forward. So let's talk about Migrate Accelerate.
So that last point kind of is my first question. So you mentioned that this is now kind of open to the community, but you need the Acquia CLI. So is the Acquia CLI that's something that's available to people outside of Acquia customers too?
Exactly, yeah. Anyone can install Acquia CLI. It's definitely not restricted in terms of who can sort of install that on their local machine.
Oh, so cool. Does this have to be so I would imagine this is installed on your new Drupal 10 site. Does it also have to be installed on your Drupal 7 site in order for you to get kind of those Drupal 7 statistics?
So certainly the flight path report is something you would want to run on the Drupal 7 site to sort of get that estimate in terms of how much the automation kind of layer can help. But in terms of actually doing the migration, it's probably going to work best on more of like a server environment where you can actually have both the Drupal 7 site and the modern Drupal site in kind of a single environment, but as sort of separate websites, because it is sort of reading from one database and then posting content into the other.
So going back to the first bullet point, for less technical users, you still probably need to be a technical user in that you can use the command line and kind of like move around in drush, as opposed to like a more site builder type of user who may not necessarily feel comfortable on the command line. Is that accurate?
I would say that's accurate in terms of getting it up and running, but I think the idea is that once that modern Drupal site is spun up, that becomes the place where the less technical user can go in and sort of use all of the point and click functionality, as opposed to sort of having to like write out migration scripts.
Got it. So you could have, your developer or development team, if you had one, kind of install this, get it up and running, and then you could kind of manage the migrations. Also, I imagine this probably reduces or eliminates maybe the need to write migrations yourself. So that's definitely super duper helpful.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's meant to be sort of a layer that sits on top of that very robust, migration suite in Drupal, and yeah, it makes it much easier to use, more accessible.
Cool.
I have to check it out. I mean, it looks powerful. I'm also interested in kind of the flight path stuff. Is flight path like a separate tool too for generating that report?
Correct. So it's sort of a standalone project, actually a completely different author for that one, but they work together in the sense of the flight path report, and there is actually a link to that in the show notes of where to sort of download that if you're interested in running it. But just more of an analysis tool that can run, as we mentioned earlier, directly on the Drupal 7 site.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Martin. As always, really on topic module of the week. I'm actually gonna have to look into this because anything that can kind of help automate that is a huge benefit to time. And I'm sure over the next year or so, as we'll talk, a lot of sites are gonna be looking to upgrade. A lot of people have been delaying a long time, so this is definitely an option. See you next week.
Thanks, Nick.